Hi, I'm Sarah Bader. You may know me from my podcast with host Peter Bell, Sons of Patriarchy, or from my work with Sarah Stankorb, where I was featured in her article for Vice and her book, Disobedient Women. Today I'd like to welcome you to this space, They Called Her Bitter, with my friend and co-host, Margaret Bronson of Deconstruction Doulas. They Called Her Bitter explores stories that often go untold, stories shaped by grief, endurance, and the cost of telling the truth. This space aims to offer language, validation, and perspective for those untangling from coercive belief systems and structures. Sometimes it's just Margaret and I, sometimes we'll have a guest join, but our goal stays the same. Arm all those who love people still in the cult, or love people in their community adjacent to the cult, with all the information and resources to be able to join our army, so it's not just us three idiots out there swinging our swords at the dragon. You're welcome in this space. Welcome, Margaret, to They Called Her Bitter. I'm so very glad that we could make this work, and I have been wanting to do this for years. I greatly admire your work, your heart, your passion, and all the hard work that you have done. Do you want to give us a little introduction?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this, and literally no one I'd rather do a podcast with. So I'm excited.
Yeah, the podcasting world is really, really, really daunting for me. So this is not my scene, but here we are. So tell us like how we found ourselves here, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird story. Like, I don't even know totally how we know each other, except that this space of, I mean, there's a lot of people in the deconstruction world, but we are in a very niche part where I think there's only maybe 7 of us, and most of us don't tell our names and are not very public and don't talk much at all. And so it's just in the like Doug Wilson series SeaWorld, a very small little group of us. And so um, our work is really similar in a lot of ways. And I think it's just like a really natural marriage of sorts.
Yeah, so and in that vein, I mean, it's also really unnatural. We are unique. I'm an atheist and you're a Christian. Um, I guess we can just get that right off the plate.
If that's a
Welcome to our
problem for
podcast.
the atheists or the Christians, just see yourselves out.
Thank you. Honesty. Here we are.
Because it's not
Yeah.
changing. If it hasn't changed yet, it's probably not going to change.
No, and I'm so glad that we get to work together. I have to say honestly that life as an atheist has always been kind of difficult, but I have never met more Christ-like Christians than I have in the last few years. It's you guys are redemptive because there's some stuff going down, and it's not pleasant.
It is crazy. It's crazy out on these streets.
Yeah, so tell me about like where you come from, kind of your journey through Christianity and your family. Sorry, I know that's a big question.
Yeah, it's 35 years of history, Sarah.
Sorry.
Okay, so uh I feel like I've kind of been all over the map. Was born into like a historic PCA church in Philadelphia, really well known. But then like actually spent a large amount of time in my little years in a Mennonite church because our car was always breaking down and we could walk to the Mennonite church, and it was just a bunch of like senior citizens, and they all pretty much adopted me and my brother as like honorary grandchildren. And so I had like I feel like I had this like crucible of like a very safe, loving, warm, everybody belongs, everybody gets to be family, everybody like, I got to be a kid, and it was never told to be quiet or like, you know, sit up straight or whatever. It was like a really sweet first couple of years. And then my parents were, I think, reacting to a lot of things that led them down a pipeline. Started with like Promise Keepers and Focus on the Family. Not that I don't know that there's necessarily anything wrong with Promise Keepers. I don't want anyone to hear me say that. But it did start down a path, and I think there were things my dad encountered in those places that led us into not the CREC, but a independent Reformed Baptist church that was pretty spicy. Big time theonomists, loved Doug Wilson, except that he baptized babies. Definitely wanting to bring back Old Testament law, legal right to stone disobedient children, head coverings, skirts, women can't work outside the home. We were members of the Heritage Foundation. We got mail from them at like my earliest ages. We were part of the Constitution Party, so I was like 13 and standing in grocery store parking lots collecting signatures to get candidates on the ballot that would help restore Old Testament law so that we could be a city on a hill. And then I did the whole like National Christian Forensics and Debate League thing out of Patrick Henry College and HSLDA. So as part of the Joshua generation, which was a subset of the homeschool movement that was geared towards mobilizing and equipping young people to take back America for God by getting involved in politics, law, or business, or theology/ministry. And so it's complicated, and I've told my story so many times.
Every branch on the tree down.
Oh, yeah, except never Pentecostal. Like, never on that side of things. Always frozen chosen, whole way through. Nothing mystical or magical to see here, you know? So my leaving of the cult and getting out is a story I've told a whole bunch of times, and I can tell it some other time, but it'll take too much time right now. But I got married at 19 to my still husband, who was a Southern Baptist pastor. He was only a year and a half older than me, but he was also of the Joshua generation. And so, you know, we had to get busy having children and serving the Lord. And so we started way too young. The SBC at first was a really healing, refreshing place. A distinct lack of, you know, sexism and racism, at least that I could see at that point. It felt really like, you know, I mean, the church that I had been at literally said that women shouldn't talk in the church building at all for fear of maybe a man overhearing them and learning something, and that would bring shame on the whole congregation. And then, you know, they talked about like women's ministry like it was of the devil. The SBC had women's ministry, and it had places that women could serve. So it was healing at first, but then, so I got married in 2010, moved to the Midwest. I had been in Pennsylvania, moved to the Midwest, huge culture shock, went from like PCA or Independent Reformed Baptist 1689 to like Midwest Southern Baptist. The culture shock was so much. So it took me a while to like just disentangle like what am I reacting against, because it's just a different culture, versus like what do I actually like have issues with, / what is better here. And so there was just a lot for my husband and I of deconstructing and sorting before we even got married. And in 2012, that's when the Tea Party started. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for me, because I was like, I thought I ran away from all of this stuff, and now it's showing up here in this place that I've been healing. I've been like healing from patriarchy in this church, and now the very same voices that sent my parents down a really scary path are showing up here again, and no one is seeing the connection. And like, they supported me in my initial deconstruction journey and healing from this like extreme patriarchy, but now they're doing it themselves. And so that was very confusing. Fast forward a whole bunch because it's a lot. But about 7 years ago, my husband was still a pastor in a different SBC church. And he also is disabled and has Crohn's disease. And so being in the hospital is a normal part of our life. And they fired him for being too sick. This came after several years of pretty intense rub between my husband and the senior pastor around Calvinism, patriarchy, and I would say like hierarchy and control. Yeah, we did 2 episodes with Bodies Behind the Bus about that whole story. If anyone wants the whole tea, I'm not going to take up the space
I love
now.
Bodies Behind the Bus.
Yeah, they're fantastic. That's great. I want to shout them out all the time. They genuinely gave us our voice back. Like, I don't think that I could have been here if I hadn't done that. And I think it was November 2020.
Yeah, they're definitely one of my favorite resources to hand out. I just love their material.
Yeah, and what I love about it is there's a lot of podcasts that talk about, oh, this group over here, that group over there. And I feel like Bodies Behind the Bus does a good job of not letting anyone excuse themselves. Like, doesn't matter if you're a progressive church, you also have abuse issues. It doesn't matter if you're, this denomination or that denomination, or not even a church, you're a parachurch organization. Like, they brought the receipts for all of it. And so I think it's a good call for everyone to kind of look at themselves in the mirror and be like, how have I been complicit in this kind of behavior?
100%.
So, anyway, after we got we didn't get excommunicated at that time. I did get excommunicated from the church that I was in as a
so casual
teenager.
at that time.
Whatever. No, he got fired, and actually, they don't like it when I use that word fired. Let me re-say that real quick. So after David lost his job for being too sick, we lost everybody. Like entire support system, community housing, obviously his job. I was a good little stay-at-home pastor's wife, so I didn't have a job. And he'd also been like blacklisted, couldn't get a job anywhere else as a pastor. We looked for months and months. Finally, a friend of his dad's offered him a job as a youth pastor at another Southern Baptist church. And we got there just a few months before COVID started. And let's just say we were not on the same side of any of the political or social issues that came out of 2020. And so it was not a good fit. But it was so eye-opening because, everyone I went to church with was fully MAGA, with a few notable exceptions. And that was hard. It was hard just seeing that we're literally working from different data sets. Like the things that they're being told and the things that I see come across my news outlets, completely different things.
Well, and for you, your husband's health was at risk. So it meant something really deeply important to you.
Yeah, actually, that was probably the nail in the coffin for my being able to even pretend to be part of the church system, because we took an entire year off of going to church because of my husband's health during COVID. So I had, for the first time in my life, like parental supervision or church supervision on me all of the time. And I'd also just come through my second major shunning within the church. And I was really hurt. Nothing made sense at that point. I was ready to leave everything behind, like God, my faith. If I could not answer one specific question, which was, is he good? Like, if God isn't good, then I don't know what we're doing. Like that, I thought that was the whole premise of the Bible, was he was supposed to be different. And the way that he was different was that he was good. And it's so crazy because, in all of these high control spaces, they talk about God as good all the time, but then they talk about it like you're just too dumb to understand how what he's doing is good, Like, you just
Right.
don't understand. If you
Yeah.
had God's wisdom, you would see how this seemingly evil thing is actually good. And I just don't believe that. I believe that if it's supposed to be good news, like the Bible talks about it, like it's supposed to be obviously good. It's supposed to be a relief. It's supposed to be a comfort. And none of this felt like anything like that. And so I started talking online, basically going to all of the worst passages that I could think of in the Bible and basically daring God to be good. Like, okay, what's up with this? This is crazy. How is this good? And I learned new framework for how to interpret the Bible, how to understand its formation and how it's supposed to like work in our lives. Basically, how to deconstruct high control, how to deconstruct this very specific framework that all of us were taught to interact with the Bible. And for me, what I found was a God that I was excited to follow, a God that was about liberation, a God that was about caring for the oppressed and throwing off the chains of, all the things, all the isms,
Yeah.
sexism and racism and just hate and the brokenness of this world. And so, yeah, in that time, talking online, kind of like deconstructing out loud, I had found a lot of people who had been raised like me, conservative, homeschooled, pretty politically active, I would say proto MAGA, proto Christian nationalist. That term didn't exist back then, but that's 100% what we were raised to be. Not only were we taught weird things about theology, but we were taught really weird things about like American history, you know? Obviously, whole things were left out, but also, you know, the South was actually fighting for states' rights, not slavery.
Yeah.
And, actually, slavery, this is a Doug thing, right? Slavery is like the most beautiful representation of interracial relationships because, you know, all the slaves are just like, all the enslaved people were just so grateful to have not to live in
Exposure to
Africa,
God.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think anyone outside of those of us who've been through it gives enough credit to how much there is to deconstruct. I mean, it's economics, it's politics, it's history, it's church history, it's theology, it's
So I have a question
language.
for you. Do
Yeah.
you have so I have a friend, he calls himself an agnostic Lutheran, which I find very funny. But he's always calling me out on my evangelical is showing, which is extremely rude. But it's really funny because he's always right. Which is also really rude. But one of the things that's we found really funny was I don't remember what the situation was, but we were talking about geology, and I said, "Dude, I was homeschooled and I went to Logos. Like, we didn't care about anything outside of the United States." And I mean, for real, like kind of the Trump and Greenland thing. I'm like, well, I don't know if I mean, some of the most basic stuff you just didn't even learn about because it didn't matter in their world. Bible class 3 times a day. Oh yeah. But geology, I mean, anthropology, no. And I haven't had time to put it like back into my brain. I
Yeah.
just have so much going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, that like, can you, I
That's
just,
my thing. Like, I read 200 books a year the entire time I was pregnant and breastfeeding. Like all of those years, I have 4 children. All of those years, I was reading 200 books a year just to literally redo the algorithm of my brain from the bottom up. And part of it
that
for
is so
me is
impressive.
that my mom was an amazing homeschool educator. Like, I will never live up to how good she did. I would say we did not get really any global history after the Enlightenment, except for the World Wars and Cold War a little bit. But like it was very once once America came on the scene, it was pretty America focused. But before that, like, I feel like I had a really good grasp of world history, although it was still very much through a Christian nationalist lens. Like, I mean, just like a huge focus on the Reformation, and the Protestants, the Pilgrims coming here, and like that
Sure, if
whole,
we compared like childhood books, we would have read the exact same list of things. I'm sure. Like I see the covers still at one of my friends' houses, and it's kind of
or like at a
triggering.
thrift store and it's like a jump scare, a Vision
Oh, it's
Forum
so
book
bad.
or a Veritas book, or
Hmm.
like, oh, what are those? There's like also the Amish had a whole bunch coming out of Lancaster, and they had like pastel covers. Do you know what I'm talking about? Just like a
Yeah, I
bunch of
do.
random books.
I was such a reader. I consumed so many books. I have to say, kind of similar to your parents. There were some things my parents like. I was a terrible homeschool kid. I don't know if my independent nature gave it away, but my poor mother, she tried. And so, I got put in private school, which is really where I started to kind of go downhill education-wise. But really, my parents always encouraged me to read, and I was reading Heinlein and C.S. Lewis's science fiction, my dad's college books when I was a young kid. So I did get some exposure that way, but it was like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and
Yeah.
so.
And the higher ups in, can we call it a cult? What are we doing with this podcast? Are we
Oh,
saying the word cult?
100%. Oh,
Okay, good,
yeah,
because it
we're
is. And we
honest
should have a
here.
whole episode. Maybe we should have a whole episode just talking about why we feel very comfortable using that term.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to say the cult. The higher ups, there was like certain books like that, C.S. Lewis, Lord of the Rings, that they did let us read, and definitely are how a lot of us started asking questions and being like, and getting out. But, there was like a filter that you read those books through, that you were given to try and bury the lead of the cognitive dissonance that they would present. Did you
Right.
read
Yeah.
Elsie?
I'm sorry?
Did you read Elsie Dinsmore?
Probably name a title. Maybe, maybe not.
Oh my
Okay, I'm
gosh,
looking it up. Hold on, hold on.
Sarah.
I missed the
No.
important.
The
Oh,
sad little perfect girl who grew up in a plantation home,
oh, oh,
and
oh, oh, oh. I think I did. Hold on, hold on. I'm
she like
Googling.
ends up marrying her dad's best friend who's like
No,
20 years
haven't read
older than
this.
her,
I have not
and
read these.
it's crazy. It is the
I
most
am not
racist
sorry.
grooming for child sexual abuse
Well,
stuff.
I'm definitely not sorry.
It is so
Ah,
pedophilic. It is
no, thank
It's
you.
weird with her and her
Pass.
dad. It's so bad.
Okay, well, hard pass. Thank you for not selling me on those books. I will be warning all my friends.
No, literally, I have friends today because of those books. Truly, the reason most of my friends are my friends is because I made a reel where I was like, did anyone read these crazy things? And that's how I found all my friends. That is why I have friends today.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Who are our friends? Like literally,
Other
I
survivors,
spend
period.
what's sorry?
Other survivors,
Yeah.
almost exclusively.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's other people in the resistance. So it's my team and Peter. Like I have a few friends, very good friends. One of my friends that I met when I was 16. And that is it. I I'm so tired of doing this work, but I'm afraid of like losing. They're my family.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been doing this work for so long.
It's been a long time. And
Yeah.
you too,
Yeah. I mean, it's
or
different.
more aggressively, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the weird thing about our work is that we have this very, very niche, like, even within the deconstruction space, there's not a lot of representation for the people who were homeschooled super conservatively, for the people who were basically raised trad wife before that was a thing, right? And it's like such a small world. And then those people kind of took over the United States government. And then now, like, we're talking to major news outlets. Like, I was here to help other people get out of this cult. I don't know how this this is crazy.
Have you heard
This is
about my
insane.
story?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, we should save it for another day. But the short version is that I accidentally agreed to be on a YouTube podcast with 35 followers, and this is where I am now. This is not my life trajectory. This is not what I expected.
We were joking yesterday. Both of us are like I dream about living in a lighthouse and never seeing or talking to anyone ever again, and just like gardening a small plot of land, losing myself in the woods, like with my
Woods,
husband and
ferns,
children. That's what I want.
rain.
That is the dream.
Yeah, I don't think I need to come back. Like, I'm not even, so it's really interesting because I've been kind of discovering that, I've really discovered that I have a very traditional view of marriage. And I always thought of myself as pretty progressive, especially in
So where are we
marriage.
coming from?
Yeah, and my first husband and I were both very progressive people, still good friends today, got married too young. But honestly, I just kind of, I know this sounds so trad wifey, which makes me feel kind of ick, but I just want to be married and um I don't want children. I have cats. Thank you. But I want to garden and I want to like homestead and I just want to be left alone. And
Okay. We should do a whole podcast on how, like, the things that we do appreciate from how we grew up,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
that I don't want to throw that baby out with the bathwater. They were right about some stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
There's a lot of
And
peace in that.
I think the left isn't any better, guys. Like, liberals are not any better. They're
No.
just not in charge right now. And I mean, I think they are. I think at this point they are. But it's not good enough for me. I guess I'll put it
No.
that way.
No. I mean, so yeah, so you ran into Doug how old?
Probably around like 10, 11 years old. But I also was a voracious reader. And so every time my parents bought one of his books, I read them, you know? So, like, I read Angels in the Architecture, I think was the first one that I read. And I have not gone back and reread it, but I loved that book. And what I took from it, I still really appreciate. Like, I married into the SBC, and let's just say their buildings often do nothing to inspire any feelings of, like, you know, holiness or like other, like divine connection with God. Like, there's nothing that they don't feel sacred at all. I love architecture so much. And I love when architecture reflects what the function the space is supposed to serve. And that's basically what his book is about. And I really appreciated it. But then I read Reforming Marriage and Federal Husband. And I mean, I was 12.
It's terrifying.
And so I didn't know enough. And I did the thing that a lot of people do with Doug, which is wherever he says something that you're like, that's crazy, you're like, he didn't really mean that. He meant something else. And I'm just not understanding what he's trying to say here. So I was able
Which
to,
he would
like,
tell you.
yeah, I was able to, everything that was like, that seems weird. I just kind of just put it in this bin over there and just didn't worry about it, which is what I see everyone doing with him, by the way. Which is why I'm very, like, compassionate towards people who have gotten sucked up into not just him, but a lot of these different smooth talkers.
Yeah. Yeah, we moved here to go to the Wilsons' church. I think just for the promise of a better America, back to the old ways, back to the Bible. And my parents pretty quickly figured out that Doug was kind of an arrogant prick. And so, and then I am my father's daughter, got myself in trouble. And so I guess since I was 12, I have also had a problem with Doug. But my dad actually went before the Logos board and said Sarah is not allowed to be at a single assembly where Doug Wilson is speaking. So I pretty much just got cut off right away because of his crazy behavior. And I was a snot. My first word was no. So this is just setting the scene for the rest of my life.
I love it. See, and that's what's so crazy. When I talk to other survivors, there are exactly two kinds of us. There's the obnoxious rule followers like me, who we were just fawning so hard. A lot of us were oldest daughters, and we just were trying to decrease conflict and take care of everybody and just not be a problem. And we really wanted to be good. And then there's the rest of y'all, and the way some of you I've got a couple other friends, and I'm just like, how did you have the cojones to stand up to every adult in your life and be like, I think you're wrong? I do not understand it. I literally lay awake at night sometimes being like, could I have? And I cannot find in me the ability to do what you guys did, being able to, from such a young age, see the BS.
I have, when I've talked to my parents, been like, how could you not? You raised me. You do understand that, right? I think I said that to someone. I moved out when I was 15 or 16. And I think I said that to them specifically. I think I turned 16. Yeah, I remember going to a bakery and meeting my mom. I got some Emily Bronte books, I think, for my birthday. I didn't notice that, my mom and dad were getting divorced. So it was great. But, no, I was like, you raised me. You didn't expect me to turn out this way? And then it's gotten even bigger now, now I'm talking to my grandparents who are really my biggest inspiration in life, and long time, lifelong atheists, generationally. That's just who they've been. Very liberal, probably more liberal leaning than even I am, but just it's been this kind of full circle moment of, this is, you raised me to be this way. I am who I am because of you. And so, just have always had really powerful family. So that's where I come from. And I just thought Doug was full of shit.
Yeah.
I just didn't get it. The racism is really where it started for me, but I'm from the Midwest. So I'm from kind of, so where I'm actually from is really near the McVeigh family farm. I pass it every time I'm home. And Livingston County is, of course, infamous because of the Michigan militia, which moved to Hayden, Idaho, which is 2 hours from here, is a super, alt-right group. The Readout is, of course, in Oregon. The Pacific Northwest is just riddled with racist pockets. We have the Plowshares here. We have 2x2s. We have the CREC. I actually live in the original Psychiania headquarters, which is, if you look it up, it's one of the original Christian cults in the nation.
So crazy. The regional nature of this stuff is so fascinating to me.
It's almost I almost want to kind of buy into the Hitlers. I feel like Doug kind of sucks the energy out of the Robinson land. The Robinsons are the people who started Psychiania, and it's just so occult. His obsession with it. I don't know if he knows, but I know how much land he's acquired and what he's near, and it just feels evil.
Yeah.
And this is an atheist. I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels evil.
Yeah.
So we should talk about your deconstructing doulas for sure.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I started talking about the things that I was seeing. Like I did, I think it ended up, I saved everything to highlights. It was over 200 slides or whatever, literally asking the question, does God love women less than men? Because I was realizing that, like, I believe that, like, to the core of my being. And, like, I didn't believe it in my head. I would never say that I believed that, but I felt it. I felt it in, like, every passage, you know? And so many answers to questions that I asked growing up were essentially, oh, well, because she was a woman, and what do you expect, kind of thing. That's just how women are. And this sense that like women are less reliable than men. And I was like, where? I know that up here, I don't believe that. So where is that coming from? And so I like facilitated a collaborative conversation with a bunch of other survivors in my on Instagram. Um, all of us kind of like together trying to trace back like where does that feeling that we all feel come from? Because none of us actually think that that can be right, but like where is it coming from? And so it became a really collaborative space to deconstruct. And what was nice about it is we talked about a lot of topics that I never see like deconstructing accounts on Instagram talking about, because like we were just raised to the right of all of them, even. Um, you know, my husband and I were kind of in from two different camps, and we talk about like how he was proto MAGA and I was Heritage Foundation. And so like those are like solidly two different groups of people. Um, and I think a lot of deconstructing happens here in the like proto MAGA world, and very little voices, and there's a lot of reasons for this, come out of that like Heritage Foundation side of things. And so to be able to collaboratively deconstruct the things that we were taught over there, and like, um, honestly, I feel like it's not just theology, it's lifestyle. It's like a lot of lifestyle stuff. We had to work through a lot of medical OCD. Like a lot of us were terrified to take our kids to the doctor. We were terrified of medicine and procedures. I know a lot of survivors who have regrets for choices that they made early in their parenting journeys because they had not yet deprogrammed from those parts of the cult's lies. There's just like a lot of things. There's a lot of shunnings that happen. And so you're navigating life with no college degree, no support network, no family, no inheritance or like money. Like you're on your own, and you probably already have 5 kids, you know? And so it's just like a very different experience deconstructing from that like Heritage Foundation side of things than it is from what I would call like the MAGA side of things, like the AOG or the SBC or the PCA. Although obviously there are sections of all of those groups who fit actually in the Heritage Foundation camp. But I mean, this is why I joke and say like almost all of my friends are themselves survivors. Um, First of all, having gone through so many different shunnings myself, um, there's just not like a lot of people who have been around for a while. But the experience is extremely intense. And it kind of makes me unfit for a lot of other relationships because my experience, like the things that I am facing in my life are just so different, and it just makes me weird. And
It's so lonely.
it's so lonely unless you find other people who really get it. Um, I do want to give a shout out to the people in my life who think I'm their cute little cult friend, you know? And they just keep me around as like a cute little tchotchke, you know? Like they love me so much, but they're like, I don't understand, but like we're so here for you.
I
Um,
think my friends just keep me around for the popcorn, like, material. They're like, "What has happened today?" I'm like, "Well,
yeah, I
Hillary
genuinely
Clinton."
think we're the jesters. We're just
Like,
entertainment.
my best friend who the one I mentioned that I've known since I was 16, we have nearly died in every car trip we've ever taken, which has included Final Destination style log truck flipping over. I kid you not. We almost got blown off a bridge. A truck started on fire. Our hotel started on fire 4 times. In which case, I had insurance and didn't care anymore. I was just like, screw it. Um, but she, all the time I tell her, I use her as like I tell people, I'm like, this is what happened. And then I turn to her, I'm like, and she'll back me up because she was there. She's like, yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's
My life
funny.
is so crazy. I just don't even bother telling people anymore because why tell them?
Yeah.
It's too weird. It gets
Yeah.
weirder every day.
I didn't for a long time. And so, um, I'm so vocal about it now online. I always wonder the people who like I worked with as like a 22-year-old or whatever who are like, I have no idea she, was like this or whatever. But yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, so I deconstructed much earlier than you. And then, really being in Moscow, I wasn't really interested in the larger Christian population. As an atheist, that just wasn't something I was engaging with. But the CREC really interested me. And so, like how much of Deconstructing Doulas focuses on, because you mentioned the Heritage Foundation. So, of course, we know their ties with the CREC and just how, they're in the same waters. And like you said, and I really resonate with that, all my survivors, the ones I'm working with, it's so hard to get them help and it's so hard to get them back on their feet because they have no education. They have no idea how to manage money. They weren't ever allowed to touch it. They weren't ever encouraged to know about it. And of course, they have so many children.
And generally
And
speaking, married way too young to someone that they're not on the same page with. Like, you're just like, it's literally a random person. And then you become even more random people as you like deconstruct and start to think for yourself. And so you're not just doing all of these things and making these decisions, but you're also trying to pull someone else along with you and like stay in proximity enough to them that like this family thing can work. It's so much.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, this week even for me, and I'm not supposed to be doing advocacy work at all anymore, and I really don't. I'm not an advocate. I'm not a trained advocate. I'm not even a peer support. I'm just, I guess, triage.
Yeah.
I just show up when called and I try and help however I can. It's a little weird. It's just, but I find that the trained advocates are very rigid and I feel a little bit more adaptable. So how I can respond is just, I mean, I've done things that like ranging from someone I'm pretty sure is at least a serial rapist, if not a serial killer, to just, marital spats. It's kind of a wild spread.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, yeah, share a little bit about what you do.
So there's so many stages to my story. So I always had a problem with Doug, and I was really close to a lot of really bad situations. I was groomed by the same man who groomed and raped Emily Dye. He was my best friend's father and a teacher at Logos. And I don't know that I was intended to be his victim. I think I was being saved for someone else who I actually really respected and liked. It was when the news first started coming out, I have to admit that I was really resistant. Like I didn't believe that the survivors. I was like, no, my experience was different. Those hugs were normal. And it took me a long time of just investigating and sitting with it and keeping my mouth shut because I knew mostly because I was scared of being eaten alive, because I knew what that would be if I said I didn't believe them. And I just asked a lot of questions. And I think sitting with Emily Dye was some of the first times where I went, oh my gosh. We sat down together and we just looked at each other. And I think it was one of the most uncomfortable moments I've ever had. We were like, oh, we're the same person. We both had red hair, both very political, both very strong-willed. But yeah, I don't think I was for Nance. I think I was for another teacher there who was kind of adjacent grooming me. So that was the first start of it. And I was too snotty to be groomed. Like, I just thought Nance was the weirdest guy. And I thought he looked like a carp. And I had no intentions of being interested in him. Like, none. It just was not going to happen. So, safe there. Then I went to a Baptist church. And that's really where my deconstruction happened. A lot of different factors. My parents went through a divorce. I had moved out really, really young. I was still in high school, very determined to finish. But I was dating an elder, I believe an elder, one of the former leadership at the CREC back in the early days, like the 90s, one of the men that rebuked Doug, actually, in the session for Christchurch. And I was dating his son. And it was just so eye-opening what Christchurch was up to. And I don't know if it's just a special talent, if it's trauma, it's probably both, but I can spot a bully and I just don't tolerate them. And Doug was a bully. And I watched what he did to people, and I was in and out of the scene for a while, but I honestly have been scrapping around with Doug since I was 12 years old. So, I mean, actively, I have been very privately for a long time. I just kind of worked as an underground railroad for women. I kept in contact. I'm still friends with a lot of Kirkers, some of whom are still at the church. Some of them who still attend. I think less so now. I think we kind of spoiled that one. If you're listening, sorry. I don't love you any less. But I just stuck close with them. And then I was always myself. I think that's my biggest advantage, is that I have always stuck with my message, which is I absolutely hate the system. I am so foul-mouthed. I, like my poor mother, I swear all the time. I am not your average, like, easy listening person. I am not chill about the system. I think it's just total crap. I think the men that support it need to be called to account. But I can see the damage. And over the years, I have learned so much more about the nuance of what that system has done. And I've gained so much compassion as I've worked with male survivors, as I've learned more about how even seemingly perfect men doing well are still victims of this system and then turn into victimizers. So I was doing that in private for up until 2021, I believe. And then I ended up on this tiny little podcast where literally my boss said, "Oh, don't worry," because I was having nerves, because I have nerves all the time. He said, "Oh, don't worry. There's just this tiny podcast. It's only got 35 followers. You'll be fine." And churches in Ireland were calling us within a week. We met Sarah Stankorb. By then, I just instantly became a face. And so I had to pivot. So now, instead of privately coming to me, women were coming to me, but it was a little bit more cloak and dagger. I mean, people arriving in the middle of the night, friends of friends, Signal, just wild things you wouldn't even believe if I told you. I mean, it's just springing people out in the middle of the night, helping them get across the border, just all sorts of wild things. But my role now really has pivoted to, I've been warning about Doug since I was a child. And here we are living in Douglandia. At a national level, this man from this little tiny town is now taking over Christianity. And I'm concerned for y'all. Like, it's really scary out there. And I guess it's just, I've been yelling for a long time. And at this point, kind of the public route is the only route I've got left. And my name's already out there. I have a lot of privilege. I do not have children. I do not have assets. So sue away. I don't have anything. You can't take anything more from me, Doug. Like, I have lost everything in this fight. So I'm here because I have the ability to speak out, and there are so many women that do not.
I love that so much. And just like, your integrity and your strength and just like commitment to doing the right thing and taking responsibility when you see something wrong. Like, I just respect it so freaking much. We've talked about this before, you and I, but like the idea of like, okay, so much of what we do is trying to make sure that people genuinely are getting to have informed consent, right? Like, that's one of our like bare, like bottom floor ethics, right? And yet there's so much about this work that feels like not giving informed consent, like as the people who are the helpers, right? Like, I had figured out Doug was bad news by about 16 years old. And it blew my life up. It destroyed my family. The effects of not just Doug, it was a whole web of things. But like the Heritage Foundation would be a good umbrella to put over all of those things. Destroyed my parents' lives, my brother's life. I got out the best. But then I saw it start to show up in the churches that I was in, and people start to fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. And what was so crazy is within the PCA and the SBC, I brought so many receipts. I warned people so much about Doug, and I never convinced one. Not a single person ever even gave me the time of day to be like, wait, so like, tell me more. It was never that. It was like immediately, be quiet, stop talking, like immediately. And some of these people didn't even know who he was. I was going to people who hadn't even heard anything Doug had said yet because I could see the wave coming. It was moving through our seminary. And so I was trying to like warn people before they encountered this stuff, before Doug had a chance to like grab their ears. And there was this, it was like triggering a booby trap. Every time I brought it up, the defensiveness and like, I don't know who Doug is, but I'm team Doug, despite the fact that like I'm having a conversation with me who like we have a relationship, like we're friends, and you're believing this stranger over me. Like, it was just so intense. And I think I just like literally can't understand why. And I just can't, it's like a curiosity that just can't be satiated. And I feel like that's how I got here, is just being like, I literally don't understand. And I cannot walk away from this conversation until I understand why this bizarre protection and response for this person who has been called a heretic by multiple denominations and organizations, who never went to seminary or got ordained by anybody. Like, why are we, the fruit coming out of his work is bad. It is bad fruit. So something is up. So why aren't we asking just normal basic questions that you would ask in any organization about any person if you were seeing this kind of fruit, But I've tried to like do the right thing each step of the way and take responsibility, because another part of my story is my parents had a book business, And so I was, again, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, introducing people all up and down the East Coast at homeschool conventions to Doug Wilson, recommending Elsie Dinsmore books. Are you kidding me? The amount of harm little me caused? Like, I feel like I'm still just taking responsibility for my actions. And yet again, like, the number of like gun violence situations I've been in as a result of just trying to do that, or, like, just that I never meant to kind of publicly go against any administration of any government ever,
That was a fun shock.
That was not something
After the
that in my
election, my
brain I
team, we
wanted.
all called each other after the election results came in. We were all crying. Maybe one wasn't. I don't know. He's very stoic. But it was like, are we gonna do this? Are we really gonna do this? Because we knew, I mean, we could see, just like you, the writing was on the wall. We knew where this was going. And yeah, we all decided this is what we're gonna do. And look where we are. I'm still sorry. I cannot. I've never been sorrier to be right. Usually, I would be gloating. I'm probably still gloating, but this is abominable.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, the moment he got elected again, I mean, it was just like a instantaneous mental health nosedive for my entire community. I think we've all collectively been so shut down, me more so than anybody. Just
But go back to the consent, because I really liked that when we were talking about that the other night.
Yeah. It was like before the election, I had one job, and then like either I had to walk away and not use any of the resources that I had to fight this thing at all, or I was going to have to go absolutely everything in. There was no like middle ground. It was like, it's too risky. And at that point, there's so few people who can make that risk. You got to use what you got. You can't take up that space and not go balls to the wall,
It's a full commitment. You have to take on a whole different personality. Like, I'm scared every day of losing my job. I'm scared every day of being shot in the street.
Yeah, you have it so different, just the
Well,
proximity.
Doug Wilson, did you know that in the last No Quarter November movie, Doug Wilson blows up my building that I live in?
Oh my gosh, Sarah.
Yeah. I am.
The one from this past year?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had drones in my window. We get criticized a lot, especially actually today on Facebook for stalking Doug. I think is right now. Everyone's like, why are you so obsessed with him? And he would never do that. They have no idea. That man spies on everyone. This town is owned by Doug. And he never gets his hands dirty. So I'm not afraid of Doug, and I'm not afraid of a lot of Kirkers. But it's just kind of like the city situation. I am constantly afraid because they really like to adopt people with mental health issues. I'm really afraid that someday they'll say, and they've told a couple people, we call this guy Flag Guy. And he's really scary. It's hard to even explain. He just drives around with gigantic Christian nationalist flags or Trump flags. And then sometimes he has some guy in a monkey suit in his passenger side, and he's threatened a lot of Hispanic community members and started a lot of fights. And and he's mentally ill, you know. And so I think on his own, just a sad case, right? But you say the wrong thing, and for sure he has like clocked me a few times. You say the wrong thing to the wrong person, and what happens, you know? Like, am I that much of a threat? I don't know. Right now, at least Doug thinks I'm nobody, so that's useful. But
I hate how scary it is for you up
I hate
there.
that it's scary too, because it should just be stupid.
Yeah.
They're clowns, right?
Right. Um, and
It's
I
annoying to be afraid of them. I don't like that. It's annoying.
and there's going to be so many people who are never going to believe how scary it is. And like,
It took NPR 6 months to clear legal just to prove that they were taking photos of me and putting them online. I literally had pictures of the woman taking photos of me. People are never going to believe what Doug does to this town.
I want to do, I mean, I know you guys have done it on Sons of Patriarchy, but I would love to do an episode here specifically about that in your voice, about the town.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've actually really talked. Yeah, we've talked a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about Moscow. You and I have sort of struggled to encompass what this podcast wants to cover because there is so much. And I know we really struggle with the name because we didn't want gender right away, you know. They called her bitter, obviously, is a very gendered term. I think we're starting to see more men who are also relating to that term. I don't know if you work with a lot of male survivors. I have actually in the last few years, and we're not alone in that term, but I know it resonates so strongly with our survivors. I know for me online, I usually get called an atheist first. I'm totally scum of the earth. They don't even bother talking to me. I mean, literally, they will not speak to me. But I'm sure in all the shunnings and stuff, did you get called bitter a lot?
Yeah. More so as an adult since leaving the SBC, my husband's firing. Because I didn't really talk to people who would have called me bitter about my deconstruction before that. I was pretty private about it. Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think that really this podcast, we're just trying to build language and space for people that are kind of doing what we do. I know we want to speak to a lot of advocates and peer supports. There's got to be more of us weirdos out there kind of collecting other weirdos. You and I have kind of fluidly moved through just about every camp because everybody's got a favorite advocate. Everybody's got a favorite, you know, way of doing things, but we've been pretty fluid and worked with a lot of people. And so I feel like this podcast really is going to hopefully service and give language to so many different kinds of deconstruction, whether that be just deconstruction from patriarchy and maintaining faith, deconstructing all the way to atheism, and just talking about church harm and what it does to the soul.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of us, and bizarrely influential in our country right now. And I think part of it is you and I have spent the last decade plus, each of us, helping people leave the thing that has become a public health crisis that we need people to leave. You know, we know they're being lied to, they're being fed, you know, they're being brainwashed, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, however you want to say it. And that is a public health crisis. This is the biggest culting that has as far as I'm aware, ever happened on this level. Like the misinformation, the disinformation, the thought stopping techniques, the indoctrination, the sheltering, like it is on a whole other level, and they are able to control it so that you're not like on a compound someplace geographically, but it's like an algorithmic cult, right? Like they
They
silo us.
dehumanized the dehumanization language that is being used right now is, dare I say it, unprecedented.
Yeah. And are those people responsible for incredible, horrific harm in our in our country and in our world, even more broadly? Absolutely. Is everyone who is over there equally culpable? They are all culpable, all of us. I mean, I'm culpable. That's why I do the work that I do, because I feel culpable. Um, but are they all equally culpable? No. Some of them have been, I mean, trillions of dollars, the most money anyone has ever spent to trick and propagandize, you know, has been leveled at a very specific demographic's head for a really long period of time, to the point where like their infiltration rate is almost zero, right? Like the voices that they hear outside of the cult of MAGA, right, are almost none. They're so insulated. And so for me, I want this podcast to help people learn the things that we've learned along the way as we've been supporting these people getting out, as we've been helping them leave, but also like the nuance of the conversation. I don't want them dehumanized any more than I want, you know, immigrants dehumanized. Okay? Like, if we do not get it right that this is a class war, like the racism is there, the sexism is there, but it is really the Epstein class versus the rest of us. And what they want is for us to just literally spend all of our energy fighting each other so we never fight them. And I think the last month has proven is that they are the actual baddies, and they're who we actually need to deal with. And so, going after grannies from Oklahoma who have been propagandized and never met a Black person in their life, you know what I mean? I'm not saying don't hold people accountable. Obviously do that. That's what my entire job is. Um, but at the same time, we need to not dehumanize them. And I would love for us to be able, because I hear it in you, I see the nuance in you, and that's why I'm excited to like have these conversations kind of publicly. Because my hope is that 2026, 2027, so many people wake up and need our services and need their community to show up for them in really like intelligent, equipped ways with care and like compassion, you know?
Yeah, and I know in this area, it's something that we really struggle with is, shockingly, there is not really good training in our government established agencies for domestic violence and things like that on deconstructing from high control situations. They have no idea what they're doing when it comes to getting women out of the cult. That's why women end up with someone like me who has no business helping. I mean, I'm just a person. And now I'm just a person with a podcast I don't even know how to run. And so hopefully with this podcast, we're able to, speak to those people who are actually experts and
Yes.
and just get those resources and arm everybody who cares. Because I think as we are seeing this rise, right, we're seeing this unbelievable wave of just hatred and sexism and racism. And it feels crushing. It feels overwhelming. It feels like they're winning. But we're also seeing this huge wave of people that want to help and they don't have any idea how. And I get asked a lot, like, what can I do? They want to do something. And I hope so badly that by the time we're done talking, we've figured out something, because I think my standard answer is, I have no idea. it's so,
we can figure it
it's
out
so
together.
wild.
And that's what we've been doing. Like, we have been figuring it out and doing the next right thing, and then figuring that one out, and then learning what we needed to learn. And now we're just going to have to take that work and collaborate harder, because there's just, like, there's no way that we could by ourselves, your organization and my organization, scale to meet the needs coming out of this cult at this point, because it's
Just legal fees are insane. There's no way. And I mean, we know what's coming. It's only going to get bigger. And I have this deep dread. It's one that, my family tells me all the time, you need to stop. Like, my health has been bad, and my friends, I've lost friends, I've lost jobs. And, and the cost is high.
so
But what I'm hoping is that the reward is also high. And I think that's what keeps me going. Like, I can't pass this off because I don't see anyone else here yet. And so I'm hoping that they come.
yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing, is that there has to be a real conversation, because the way things stand right now, the way to access resources is, I'm going to say 3. I think it's going to end up being 3. You can get resources through the government, right? And, like, they've got nothing in the cult deprogramming world. They've got nothing. There's no resources. They can maybe help with like some bills and like some financial assistance, right? That's what you're going to get coming out of this cult from the government. And that's only if we start getting better policies. The next way is the church. Okay. And the problem is that what you are going to see over and over and over and over again is people saying, we're the good church, not like them. The people who hurt you over there, yeah, forget everything they say, now listen to me. And some of those people are going to be very well-meaning, but they have not deconstructed the same things that they believe that were causing problems over there. And so even if they are the most well-intentioned and they're not just being grifters, a lot of them have not done the work to actually be different enough for it to be worth everything that you've lost. Like, we want to get far away from this crap, right? Like, it hurt us bad. We want to get so far away that we never go back there again, right? And so the problem with the church is it's really hard to determine who is going to be pushing you back into conformity with the system that we have kind of all collectively decided needs to die and be replaced with something healthier. Like, how do you tell if they're going to be pushing you out that way, or if it's actually deconstructed? And how do you know? Because you haven't deconstructed yet. So how can you tell? You know what I mean?
It's really interesting because I get asked all the time what church to go to. You're asking an atheist, but I have a list. Here are the safe ones.
Yeah.
And it's just a wild world.
Yeah. And then the third place that you can get resources from is academia. There are people who are experts in cults and stuff like that. And so we should put in the show notes some recommendations for those folks. And they're like the best out there. But first of all, they still aren't believed outside of their very niche fields. It costs money, right? And I would put like therapy and, various therapies under this as well. But again, not all of them are created equal, right? Not all therapy is created equal. And again, as someone who still needs to deconstruct, how do you determine who to listen to? You haven't deconstructed yet, so how can you tell who's safe and who's not. And so I think a big piece of this is the collaborative nature, helping people kind of speed run a lot of their deconstruction. Because we can give them language that it took us like a decade to find, but I think another big thing that is part of the power, I think, of our partnership is I'm a Christian and you're an atheist, and neither of us have a mission to get people to come to Christ or to
no agenda
Christ.
here.
Like, there's not an agenda on that level. Both Sarah and I are extremely passionate about individuals owning their own minds. And we just don't want you to be under spiritual oppression, where someone is controlling you and using your love for the divine or whatever to get you to do behaviors that make them rich or powerful.
Yeah, it's a giant pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Oh.
And maybe it'll be a little cathartic along the way.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
We're going to watch a lot of docuseries. It's going to be fun. Putting that on the company credit card. I don't know about you, but watching Shiny Happy People is where I went. That was the most traumatic one for me. I was like, oh no. I did not know I was IBLP.
Season 1 was very close to home.
Which one?
Season 1 of Shiny Happy.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched season 2 because I heard it wasn't that great. I don't know. So I want to talk a little bit real quick about money for deconstructing doulas. You have a mission. You're helping people. We're going to put it in the show notes. We're going to put it up in our bio on Instagram. What is that money going towards?
So the money is taking us from me just being a girl who kept meeting a bunch of people and helping them get out to scaling it and bringing in people who can help us actually reach more people and do a better job. And so the idea is basically that we are building a path out of Christian nationalism. Right now it's a cow path. It's a little deer trail, but it needs to be paved. It needs to have porta potties set up and water stations and campsites, so that people can leave safely and leave to someplace safe.
So before we close, I want to thank Margaret for being here with me, for showing up with honesty, courage, and willingness to sit inside this heavy work of care. This kind of work isn't light, and it isn't easy, and I'm deeply grateful we do not carry it alone. If today's conversation resonated with you, I really encourage you to take a look at our linked resources and explore Margaret's nonprofit, Deconstructing Doulas. You can find the link in our show notes. Margaret is showing up and doing meaningful, necessary work, and the support truly matters. Thank you for being part of this space today.